listening to the very best in modern praise and worship. My name is Tony Hammock. I'm here in the studio live with Charlie Fuqua, affectionately known as the King of Controversy. And we missed you for the past couple weeks, and I was on vacation, and I know Charlie was doing some running around and trying to keep our lives organized. But we're happy to be back with you, and I'm excited to talk on the radio.
You know, summer's a time to relax and take it easy, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, I tell you, as a grandparent, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 64, and a 3-year-old can keep you busy.
Yeah, that's right.
But you know, it's a good busy. It's just wonderful being around kids. I love it.
I know a little bit about 3-year-olds.
I'll bet you do. But anyway, we're here today to talk about things in the news. And you know, I almost wish, not almost, I really wish that I could stop talking about Islam.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't in the news, that there'd be something else to talk about. But it always seems to be in the forefront lately.
Yeah, I guess the thing that comes to my mind is this deal in Iraq. You know, is it ISIS, or they changed their name to something else? And they're very open about their agenda to create an Islamic caliphate in Iraq, to rally Muslims worldwide to come and fight and join the struggle, you know, to establish this Islamic government in Iraq. And I guess they had a meeting last week, maybe yesterday, day before yesterday, trying to get this Iraqi government to come into agreement to say, hey, apparently none of the existing government in Iraq wants that.
Well, that's because the existing government is controlled by Shiites.
Yeah.
And the insurgents, if you will, are Sunnis.
Oh, okay.
And one thing you can count on Islam to do, it will always be busy killing people. And if they can't find Buddhists or Christians or somebody else to kill, the Shiites will kill the Sunnis, and the Sunnis will kill the Shiites.
So they'll have a little denominational battle.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever you call it.
It's a religion of death. That's the only way you can describe it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people haven't really. People that listen to us are probably getting it, but I mean, most people out there think that, you know, there's really the Islamic God and the Christian God and the Jewish God are all really the same God. They've just kind of gone different directions in history and all that. But when you really look at the Islamic God and the Islamic doctrines, they are filled with death and hatred and murder and pedophilia, lying, stealing. These things are not only condoned, but they're encouraged. And even you know, peace. The idea of peace is just a tactic till your enemy goes to sleep, and then you can come in and kill them.
That's right.
So there's a lot of these ideas are central and fundamentally replete in Islam. And you know, for people to just think that everyone out there in the rest of the world thinks the same way they do, you've got to get your head out of the sand, because they do not.
Right.
They do not.
Listen, I've written a little blog. I'd like to read it if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
Okay? And I think it kind of addresses what's going on today, and I've titled this The Father of Lies.
Now, where can we find this online?
It's on my website. Matter of fact, if you're on my email list, you just got it this morning. I sent it out this morning. But you can go to godslawforamerica.com,
okay,
and you can pull it up there. But I'm just going to read this, because I think it addresses what's going on. There's so many scandals in our federal government right now that it's hard to know where to start to discuss them. We have an administration that uses lying as a way of life. President Obama was raised a Muslim. From his words and action, he's made it clear that he'll always support the most radical elements within Islam. What overarching principle can be applied to explain what's happening in the world today and turn us back to prosperity? How can we know what to do and what not to do? The answer is amazingly simple. We should do what is right. How do we know what is right? God's Word, the Bible, defines right and wrong. The standard does not change with each opinion poll. God made it amazingly clear and simple when He gave us the Ten Commandments. If we are violating any of the Ten Commandments, we know we're doing something wrong. Let us just consider one of the Ten Commandments: you shall not bear false witness. We should always know we're doing something wrong when we're lying. Since the time of Mohammed, Islam has taught that lying is a sacred and holy duty for every Muslim. Muhammad entered into a 10-year peace treaty with the people of Mecca. 2 years into the treaty, he violated the treaty and marched his army victoriously into the city of Mecca and took it over. With this action, Muhammad invented the doctrine of taqiyya, sacred deception. Since Islam teaches that the perfect model for human conduct is the life of Muhammad, it is a sacred duty for every Muslim to lie to every non-Muslim at every opportunity to gain advantage over them. By constantly lying, President Obama is simply doing what is required by his religion. The Bible teaches that there is one thing that the God of the Bible is incapable of doing: lying. The Bible teaches that Satan is the father of lies. Muhammad was a liar, and his followers are taught that they should always be liars. We should always expect Muslims to lie to us. Through their oil wealth, Muslims are gaining increasing control over the political parties, media, and Hollywood. We should expect these sources to lie to us. We should measure everything by the unchanging standard of God's Word, the Bible. And somehow God just laid that on my heart. Lying is at the very heart of Islam. It's the heart and soul of Islam. I mean, Islam is a lie. Because it misrepresents the very nature of God.
Yeah, and I've heard it said that Islam is really the center for world paganism. You know, there are, I think, 1 billion practicing Muslims. I'm not sure if those numbers are exactly right, but you've got 1 billion people that bow down to a rock in Mecca because they believe that rock atones them of their sin. So you've got a rock that replaces the blood of Jesus, and the devil's laughing the whole way to the bank on that deal.
Yeah.
You've deceived 1 billion people to bow down to a rock.
Yeah, people, one of their duties in life, if they can afford it, is to go to Mecca. And there's this black cube
the box
in the center of the Grand Mosque in Mecca. And people go in a circle around it and press to get close to it, to just reach out their hand close to it, to get the vibes from it, I guess. I don't know. And there's actually people crushed to death in this process. And they worship this. And what's ironic is Islam supposedly teaches that there's only one God. But they worship a rock.
Yeah. And two, I don't have a real good grip on all the history, but Allah was a moon god, if I'm not mistaken.
Allah was the ancient Arabic moon god. And what's interesting was, in Muhammad's time, they worshipped hundreds of gods, over 600 gods. But the God of Muhammad's family was the moon god. So he made his family god the head god, the only god.
So most of the Muslims I've ever dialogued with are staunch monotheists. They are, and they'll say that a Trinitarian is a polytheist. You believe in 3 gods.
Which we know is not true.
Yeah, even though it's one God with the 3 and 1, 1 and 3. But anyway, to be such a staunch monotheist when your own God is just one of many gods, it's kind of a, what do you call that, inconsistency, I guess.
Well, see, Mohammed, due to his contact with Christians and Jews, became a monotheist.
Right.
And he said, my family's God's the only real God, and the rest of them are all false. So Muhammad became a monotheist.
He wrote the book.
Yeah. Okay, there's some other things in the news that I wanted to address today, and one of them is good old Joe biden.
Joe Biden. I haven't been paying any attention
You
to
know,
Joe.
the moron that keeps giving.
Yeah, the gift that keeps giving.
He
says interesting things.
He does. Now you remember, by the way, Joe Biden claims to be a Catholic. Okay? Now I want to say this. Here in Batesville, Arkansas, where I live, I know some Catholics that are really Catholics.
Right.
You know, they follow Catholic doctrine. They really are Catholics, and they're good people.
Right.
They're good people. Joe Biden, there's not 1 inch of him that's really Catholic. And here's what he says. Protecting gay rights is more important than protecting Christian values. And he said that in a speech to about 100 people at the Naval Observatory at the Vice Presidential Mansion. He told the crowd that protecting gay rights is the defining mark of any civilized nation, and that this should supersede any national, cultural, or social traditions. Here's his exact words. I don't care what your culture is. Inhumanity is inhumanity is inhumanity. Prejudice is prejudice is prejudice. So he really believes that if you think that homosexuality is a sin or wrong, that you're just prejudiced and inhuman.
You're just a hater.
Yeah, and that's where he wants to take our culture, to recognize that homosexuality is not wrong, it's just another lifestyle. Matter of fact, maybe the preferred lifestyle. And it's important to note that's where the Democratic Party has taken us. And I know Christians, or people that claim to be Christians and claim to be Democrats. And I've said this over and over again, you cannot be a Christian and a Democrat. They're mutually exclusive groups. They're totally incompatible.
Well, there are some, to me, there are some glaring things about the platform of the Democratic Party that I personally have problems with. And then let me also say this: there are some things in the Republican Party that I also have problems with. So, but for me personally, and I know I'm just one person, my understanding of God and the Bible and righteousness, holiness, ethics, and all those things seem to be more in alignment with what's going on in the Republican Party than in the Democratic Party. So I think you made the comment, the Republican Party is the better of two evils.
The lesser
of two evils.
Yeah.
So, but like for me, there are certain elephants in the room in the Democratic Party, their platform, which one is abortion. They are for abortion, and they think that's okay, and I don't. So and to me, it's like I said, it's the elephant in the room. It's just a giant issue for me personally. Some people can just, oh yeah, it's just abortion. That's no big deal. Whoa, wait a minute. We're talking about Pharaoh. We're talking about Herod. We're talking about Molech. We're talking about Baal. We're talking about horrible historic precedents for killing children, and that's what we're doing. So, like I said, to me,
let me say this: if there was no historic precedent, how do you justify killing an innocent child? I mean, there ought to be something within your being that says this is wrong.
Yeah, and so that for me puts me out of the equation when it comes to the platform for the Democratic Party. And then this, I know the Democratic Party tried to kind of get God out of their platform, and I think they passed some kind of resolution
to keep God in.
To remove God first. I think they did that without some kind of constitutional or some conventional vote, and then they thought, oh, we've committed political suicide here. We're losing our base. We're losing a lot of people here who are social conservatives but political whatever Democrat. And so we need to
Put God back.
Put God back. You know, we've made a mistake here. We've gone too fast here. We've gone too radical with this. And so as they tried to put God back, it was like the people didn't want God back. You know.
Well, the party faithful of the Democratic Party hate God. That's all there is to it. They hate God. You know, here's what I like to say. The problem is not that Democrats are wrong and Republicans are right. It's that Democrats are evil and Republicans are the lesser of two evils. I mean, that's where we are as a nation.
Yeah, and really, you know, let's even go more macro with this. When you look at our government and you look at our system, it's not a theocracy. And if you think about what is the most perfect form of government on the earth that would line up mostly with the Bible, I believe it would be a theocratic form of government.
Absolutely.
Where God, the Lord Jesus, is the king. And we worship Him, we serve Him, we submit ourselves and our lives to King Jesus, who's a benevolent, loving, my burden is easy, my yoke is light, leader, king. As much as I love our representative republic, I love our government and what we've got, I really believe that Jesus is coming to establish a government on the earth in the future. That there's a stone that's not cut with human hands that's coming to smash the governments of the earth. And so as time goes on, I see the system we've got. I see these other systems. I see these ideas, these ideologies, these processes, and all this, the philosophies of men and all these kinds of things. And these things are kind of fascinating to think about. They're fascinating to talk about and dialogue and, da-da-da-da-da. But at the end of the day, Jesus is coming back. And when He comes back, He's going to set up a kingdom. And I actually believe He's setting that kingdom up right now.
He is. He's setting it up within me.
In the hearts of men.
Yeah.
And as people submit to the Lordship of Christ, then they become vessels of honor to propagate or perpetuate the ideology and the life of Christ into others. And if Christian people would obey, if Christian people would do what they're supposed to do, as they're inspired by the grace of God in their hearts, we would see our country change. I mean, we would see our country really begin to change fundamentally from the grassroots. And this is really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this renewal or this revival to come. But it's only going to come. I don't think it's going to come from the top down.
It's not going to come from the top down.
From men, from like government officials and all that, changing things. I think it's going to come from the bottom up, the people. Because really in our form of government, the people are in charge.
Yeah.
So if the people don't get it, we're going to vote for numbskulls, as a culture.
And we're doing that.
Which seems to be what we've done to a degree, yeah.
It's interesting the point you bring up about Jesus being the king.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't know if you're aware of this, but when our country was being formed, there was a movement to set up the United States as a monarchy and to draft a fellow by the name of George Washington as the first king. And George Washington said he was unwilling to serve as king because the United States already had a king, and that was King Jesus. And he said, but I will preside until he comes. And so that's where we get president, because he was presiding. And that was the attitude of George Washington. How far have we fallen from the attitude of George Washington? Today, I wish we had leaders like George Washington that said, I'm just here kind of filling in.
He's a little politically incorrect by today's standards.
Yeah, he's very political. Filling in until Jesus completely takes over. And I'm going to try to follow His direction and guide as much as I can. That's the kind of leaders that we need today.
While I was on vacation this last week, I went to Orlando, Florida with my family to see Disney World and Sea World and do some fishing. And my father was an athlete. He grew up in West Texas, kind of a scrappy kid, and got a scholarship to a junior college there in Texas, and ended up being picked up by the University of Florida, where he was a second-team All-American, and he was inducted into the Gator Hall of Fame. So I want to show my kids all this stuff. So we just happened to be on the way to Orlando. We drive right through Gainesville. so my wife suggests, hey, let's go check out Grandpa, you know. So we do, and we have a big time with all that. And I actually forgot where I was going with that, Charlie. What were we talking about? Oh, I know what we were talking about. I got it back. Okay, sorry.
You got on your dad.
Yeah. So there's this football player that used to play for the University of Florida named Tim Tebow.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow was a Heisman Trophy winner. He led the Florida Gators to one or two national championships. He's a pretty outstanding guy, athletically. Anyway, actually, the record for the largest attendance of any football game in Florida history was Tim Tebow's last game. And there was this thing called Tebowing. I don't know if you remember or not.
Is that when he got down on his knees and prayed? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was interesting to me that the American public called it Tebowing. Like, he's the only guy that does this. You know, it's like it's a specific event only for Tim Tebow, that other people don't do it. And it's just, to me, it kind of shows how far we've come as a society, because, you know, when George Washington prayed, and there's portraits of him
he was Tebowing.
He was actually praying. It's always been called prayer, you know. And to make it something other than prayer almost is like, hey, honey, what's that guy over there doing? I don't know. It's Tim Tebow, ain't it? Let's call it Tebowing.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, really? You know, we don't even pray anymore as a society. And so, but anyway, I'm looking for the day when the American people, as a whole, as a culture, Jesus becomes first again in our nation. And I really believe that those days are upon us. Those days are coming. Because really, sin, I believe the book of Hebrews says sin's pleasurable for a season. But if anyone of our listeners has ever been entrapped in sin, you've been in bondage to sin, boy, does it get old, you know.
It gets ugly quick, doesn't
it? Sure does. And you start looking, oh, man.
I don't know about you, Tony, but I speak from experience.
Yeah, all of us do. All of us do. So I'm excited for that day when the American people wake up, Jesus becomes Lord of our daily lives, our daily thoughts. And you know, I want to say this too for our community here. I think there are many, many, many people in our community who really love the Lord Jesus. But we got a big country. You know, I don't know the exact number, 200 million, 250 million Americans. You know, there are a lot of folks out there that are antithetical to Christ. They are just against Jesus. They're against traditional values. You know, you're talking about Joe Biden talking about how we need to elevate the rights of homosexuals and lesbians over the rights of Christians. Wow. You know, that's a pretty brash statement. Why do they have rights better than I have rights? You know, I'm not into bashing people. I don't think we should bash people because of sin or because of issues and all that.
But we need to call sin sin.
We need to know.
And this is important. You and I don't define sin.
No.
God does.
Yeah, right. I'm not the judge. I don't judge anybody.
Absolutely. We are not the judge. God is the judge. He defines right and wrong.
Yeah.
We just need to submit. That's all.
And the thing is, too, you know, there's a chance, and let me finish this thought. There's a chance that God could be wrong. But if you're going to say God's wrong and His Word's wrong, what are you standing on? I mean, what kind of foundation are you standing on? And I think, you know, the issue. I was talking with someone the other day about fornication, and this person was like, you know, hey, I've been married, you know, I've got these desires and all this stuff, and they were kind of operating from the paradigm of, will God zap me or will God smite me if I sin and all this. I was like, well, look, this law or this thing is sin because God wants to protect you from prematurely combining your emotions with someone before you're married, because you don't want to do that. You don't want to go into a marriage blinded by this sin, because that's what that sin does. It really bonds people together anyway. So, you know, the issue isn't God not wanting people to have fun or God wanting to restrict people. The issue is God protecting us and God saying, hey, I've made you a certain way and this is the right way to live. If you want to prosper and do well, you'll be wise to obey what I say in my word. And you like, you've got your book, God's Law, the only political solution, and being lawful is the right way to live. But what a lot of people I don't think really get is the fact that only God can give you the ability to live this way. Now, I think we inherit generational blessings. We inherit things from our parents, paradigms of thought and in life and living that we get by people in authority from our childhood, and we can enjoy, a lot of times subconsciously, the benefit of years and generations of godliness that we've come through. I know a lot of folks today in our modern time, they think they're good. Well, I'm good. I'm a good person. Well, why are you good? Well, because your parents were good. Well, your parents were good because they gave their life to Jesus.
Yeah.
And they trained you and taught you how to live. But I'm telling you, in our community, there are people that live in animal feces.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There
are people that live in just deplorable conditions. And why? Well,
they choose to live there.
They're humans. They're human beings that don't have the benefit of that generational blessing. Now, what can get them out of that is Christ. They could be a first-generation believer, and they could say, hey, I've had enough of this. I'm ready to give my heart and life to Jesus Christ and overcome the things of this life, overcome the things of this world.
It's interesting. I at one point in my life, met a woman who was living in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
And often what comes with that is drug use and
right.
every kind of imaginable problem you can think of. And I commented to her that she might think about getting into church and giving her life to Christ. And her response was, I just don't know if I could be happy like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, you're happy in what you're in?
Yeah.
Well, I can't comprehend that.
Yeah.
I can't comprehend that.
It's like, oh, you like jail? Jail good.
But anyway, I'm ready to move to something else, and it's something I've talked about several times, and I somehow can't leave this story alone.
Yeah.
And it's about a woman in Khartoum in the Sudan, and her name is Dr. Miriam Ibram. And she's out of jail right now. Okay, but she's married to an American citizen. Okay? And she was put in jail for adultery and apostasy. Now,
she married a non-Muslim?
She married a non-Muslim. Okay? Now, is that illegal in the Sudan? Well, it is if you're a Muslim. If you're a Muslim and you marry a non-Muslim, your marriage is considered void. And she's had 2 children by this man, so it's obvious that she's had relations with him.
Yeah.
So since the marriage is void and she's had relations with him, she's committed adultery. Okay? Now, she was legally and legitimately married to this man, but why did they say it's void? They say she is a Muslim because her father was a Muslim. Now, her father abandoned the family when she was very young, and her mother raised her as a Christian. She's never been a Muslim. But by law, Sharia law, since her father was a Muslim, she's considered a Muslim. And certain of her family members have brought these charges against her. And it seems that she is entitled somehow, and I don't know all the details of this, to some property. And what it's all about is they want her dead so they can have the property. And that's the bottom line. As a matter of fact, this relative that's the chief one in bringing the charges says that by claiming to be a Christian, she's bringing dishonor on the family, and that they know how to deal with that.
Oh, yeah.
And Islam deals with dishonor by killing the person that has dishonored them.
Honor killings. Right?
Honor killings. And this is an interesting thing too, and I think I ought to probably go into this. There were some people that kind of dishonored a guy by the name of Jesus Christ.
Right.
Okay? They nailed him to a cross, beat him, crucified him, and killed him.
Right.
Okay? While he was hanging on the cross, he had something to say about the people that were doing that to him. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah.
What was it?
He said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. You know, isn't that interesting? The founder of the Christian religion called upon the creator of the universe to forgive the people who were torturing him to death while they were torturing him to death. That kind of sets a tone for the religion, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Okay, now let me just give you a contrast to that. There was a poet that composed and recited a poem. It was a female poet, and it was about Muhammad. And it was derogatory to Muhammad. So, as you might guess, Muhammad, being the caring, compassionate person he was, he forgave her for it. No, he commissioned an assassin to kill her.
Yeah.
And that set a
tone.
A tone, you know, for anyone that ever, how can I put this? Said anything derogatory, not about only Muhammad, but any non-Muslim that says anything derogatory about any Muslim. Since the perfect standard for human conduct is the actions of Muhammad. Okay? So if you're a Muslim and someone says something derogatory about you and they're not Muslim, it's your duty to kill them to preserve your honor.
Yeah.
It set a tone. And that is Islam. You know, I wish people could understand this. Every single thing that is evil is glorified as the appropriate thing to do in Islam.
Yeah.
You know, what did Jesus say? He said, pray for your enemies. You know?
Yeah, right. Love your enemies.
Love your enemies. Be kind to those who despitefully use you. What did Muhammad say? If anybody insults you in even the slightest way,
kill them.
Kill them.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's just a wonderful, harmonious world to live in, isn't it?
Yeah, well, one of the things we like to joke about here on the radio, which really isn't very funny, but it's, you know, hey, Charlie, you shouldn't say those things about Islam because it's a religion of peace. And by the way, if you keep it up, those people will come over here and kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously there's some duplicity in that thought. It's, you know, we joke about it, but there is quite a bit of vengeance, you know, violence, and all those kinds of things really at the center of Islamic ideology. Yeah. Hey, I got to take a break for just a minute.
Okay.
Can you carry?
Sure, I can carry it.
For
okay.
about 5 minutes?
Okay, I want to talk about Miriam, this Sudanese woman who is, well, she's not locked up right now, but what is going on with her right now is she is living in the American embassy in the Sudan. And the reason for that is a appellate court in the Sudan heard her case and released her. Now, she argued at her trial that she was not guilty of apostasy. Now, what's apostasy? Apostasy is converting from Islam to another religion. And she said she couldn't possibly be guilty of apostasy because she had never been a Muslim. She was raised a Christian. Well, anyway, the court found that since her father was a Muslim, she was a Muslim, so she was guilty of apostasy. And anyway, in the Sudan, an appellate court then heard her case, and they overturned that decision. And actually, she was released. And now, this is a bit confusing, but from the government of South Sudan, she received a visa to travel out of the country, and her husband and her 2 children were ready to board an airplane to fly back to the United States. Remember, her husband is an American citizen. In the airport, they were taken into custody by Sudanese authorities, and the Sudanese authorities said that since their passports were issued by South Sudan, that they were not valid. Now, what happened was they took refuge in the American embassy in the Sudan, and that's where they are right now. And I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but they're stuck basically in the American embassy. At least she's no longer in prison. At least she's with her family, her husband and her children. So I'm going to ask that all of you pray for her and for her family. I've mentioned this website before, and I'm going to mention it again. This is on Voice of the Martyrs. And it deals with Christian persecution in other countries, and it used to deal primarily with Christian persecution in communist countries. But we were talking about this a little before the radio started. I don't know what's going on, but both Russia and China are beginning to loosen up with religious tolerance. And most of the persecution religiously of Christians and basically anybody of any religion today are in Islamic countries. That's where most of the persecution is going on today. And you know, it's interesting that Muslims, as they cut off your head, they say Allah Akbar, which means Allah is greater, meaning greater than any other God.
Yeah.
Well, my question is, if he's so great, why don't you let him mete out the justice rather than you do it?
Well, yeah, and that brings up a good point too, because I think about, I'm going to kind of reverse that, because I think about, you know, Christianity, and I personally believe that Christ is superior. I believe he's the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I believe he's the only way to the Father. I believe that every other religion is false. I believe that Jesus Christ warned us about false prophets. So if that's true, then the thoughts and the processes in the kingdom of God should trump every other kingdom, and that people should ultimately surrender to the lordship of Christ through evangelism, through soul winning, through winning hearts and minds with words, not violence, of course. So, you know, the Christian church has got the ability, with Jesus on the inside of the people, to really evangelize the whole world. And I really believe that's what we're called to do. I believe we're called to, you know, for world evangelization. I really believe that this is what Jesus intended to do by raising up disciples, that he intended for his disciples to raise up disciples, and those disciples to raise up disciples. If you take 1 times 12 times 12 times 12 times 12 times 12 times 12, it doesn't take very long to get to 7 billion.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a real agenda in the ministry of Jesus to win the world. So I believe Christianity is superior, and so you see the numbers I've heard is that 1 million Muslims convert to Christianity every year on the continent of Africa, which is incredibly encouraging, because really, I mean, when you look at when you compare the two religions, there's really no comparison. I mean, there's really, you know, Islam is totally rooted in fear and control and manipulation and legalism, and, you know, Christianity should be rooted in love and mercy and grace and the power of God, and, you know, all these kinds of things. Which, man, I don't know what strums the strings of everybody else's heart,
but it's your.
But I know what strums mine.
Yeah, mine
whoa,
too.
love and mercy. Oh God, you love me. You're merciful.
I need that mercy.
Oh man, yeah, it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. So, you know, if that's communicated clearly to people of different ideologies, it's really superior. You know, so if there's clear communication and people get it, people can ascend to understand. Oh man, yeah. And then the Spirit of God can come and give them some tangible experience. Man, they're going to submit. They're going to come in.
You know what's interesting to me is what's happening in the communist world today. You know, there's basically, at least in Russia and China, not quite so long, but in Russia there's a little over 100 years of history of trying to stamp Christianity out.
Right.
And that was the primary religion they were trying to stamp out in Russia because it was dominant in Russia. And after 100 years, they've come to the conclusion that stamping out Christianity was a mistake.
It's a bad thing.
And now Russia is embracing Christianity. And I really believe that in Russia and China, which has recently opened the door for the open distribution of Bibles in China, I believe that these people are starting to say, hey, you know, Christianity is not really a bad thing for society. Even if they don't believe,
Right.
they can see the fruits.
Right.
And as they look at the comparative fruits of Islam, they can see that's not good for society, that it's destructive to society. And the communist world, I think, is waking up to the fact that Islam wants to destroy them as well.
Well, what are the nations on the earth now that are 95% Islamic or more? Somalia,
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia. I mean,
Jordan, Iraq, Iran.
you know, a lot of these nations are, ew,
Yeah.
you know, who wants to live there? You know.
Yeah.
So, like you said, the fruit's there.
Well, the fruit is constant warfare. I mean, there's no exception.
There's no peace.
There's no peace. You know, it's a religion of peace and tolerance that has no tolerance and no peace.
Just though you agree with them.
Yeah.
It's peace and
Well,
tolerance.
but they don't even agree with each other.
Yeah.
And even if all the, say, Sunnis wiped out all the Shiites, okay, then they'd have divisions within themselves. I mean, and they do. They already do.
Yeah.
And
I don't know enough about it. But
Muslims kill more Muslims than any other group. Yeah, it's a religion of death, because the father of their religion is for the death of people. And when I say the father of their religion, I'm not talking Mohammed. The father of their religion is Satan. And you know, a lot of people, I don't think, can really appreciate or understand why Satan hates us so much. And he does. He hates us with a hatred that is inconceivable for most people. But why does he hate us? Satan goofed up one time. And what did God do? He cast him into hell. He threw him out, right? Angels only get one chance. And then we come along, right?
yeah.
Okay? How many chances does God give us?
Lots.
Lots of chances. Why? Why did God choose to do that? I can't answer that question. I don't know the answer to that. But God gives us chance after chance after chance. I don't know why he gives us so many chances. Do you have an answer to that other than just that he loves us?
Yeah, I really don't know. I'm thankful. You know, I've often wondered about that too, and I think it's because of his own nature. He's chosen to be that way. You know, it's just the love in him causes him to love us, even though we're at times very unlovable. You know, but again, we are his children. We are his creation, and he just loves us. Now, comparing and contrasting that with, like you said, the angelic situation. You know, 1/3 of the angels get swept out of heaven by the dragon's tail in the book of Revelation, which I think speaks of Satan's fall to the earth. And, you know, he took 1/3 of the angels with him, which obviously means 2/3 haven't gone. You know, so it's a 2-to-1 fight, you know, if you will. In the angelic realm, or the second heaven, there's, you know, twice as many angels as there are unclean angels or unclean spirits or whatever. But I'm really, you know, kind of clueless on some of that stuff. You know, wow, God really loves us. Why did he love us so much? You know, it's amazing.
You know,
I'm happy about it.
It's interesting to me. You know, you think about your love towards your children.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I've met your children.
Yeah.
They're not perfect.
No.
But you just keep on loving them anyway, don't you?
Sure do.
Well, you know, I guess it's kind of that way between God and us. Mm-hmm. We're certainly not perfect. And he just keeps on loving us anyway.
And that could be part of the difference too, to compare and contrast how he responded to Lucifer and how he's responded to us, is that we were made in his image and likeness.
Yeah.
Where Lucifer was not.
Yeah, I can't understand that. There's no way I
I
can
don't
wrap
know.
my
We
mind
can
around.
just throw stuff out here all day on that, just theorizing things.
I'm ready to change gears now.
We're going to talk about Alan West.
Well, you know I love Alan West.
I tell you, if you don't like Alan West, your liker's busted.
I just love this guy.
I like him too.
Anyway, I get a blog from Alan West, and it's almost always good. And
he's a rather polarizing individual.
actually, I'm trying to think. I can't even remember what it is now. I can't draw it. But he said something the other day that I disagreed with. And that's the first time ever.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, that's not what I'm going to talk about today. He wrote a blog on Obama stating that he's going to use his executive authority to fix the immigration problem in America. Now we're all aware of this flood of illegal immigrant children coming into the United States. Well, this is just an unbelievable I don't even know how many. I don't know if anybody knows how many. I don't know if the government's giving those statistics. Probably in the hundreds of thousands. And this is all
I have no idea it was that many.
Oh yeah, it's huge numbers of immigrant children coming into
How are
the
they?
United
Are they just like 8-year-old kids walking from
Well,
Costa Rica?
I say immigrant children. Actually, some of them are probably 21 and 22. But there are very, very young children. Yeah, I think some of them as young as 4 and 5.
So their parents just say, go with these guys and take off to the United
Right,
States?
and it's why? What's motivating? Well, life is bad there.
Well, evidently.
And they've been told if you go to the United States, you'll be taken care of. And the parents can't take care of their kids, and they say, go. And also, it's if their child comes here and is allowed in, it's an anchor to get them in. And that's really what it's all about. And really what's motivating this is Obama's talk that he's going to allow illegal immigrants to stay and become citizens has motivated this behavior on people. What we do has consequences.
Sure.
And so by saying, well, if you're an illegal immigrant, you're welcome, you can stay, you can be a citizen, as long as you vote for the Democratic Party. That's really what it's all about. But he's motivating people to send their children by that kind of talk. But it is just a total nightmare on what's going on. Now, what has he said he will do to fix the problem? When an illegal immigrant child comes into the United States, the law now is that they have to be, quote, processed, go through certain procedures, because they're children. As a nation, we care about children, right?
Sure.
Okay, so we don't want to just, be inhuman or cruel to them. They're
Right.
children.
Right.
So, but anyway, Obama has said, and whether this is just empty rhetoric, he says he's just going to send them back. And that's a violation of the law, okay? Which opens another whole issue that Obama just doesn't seem to care when he violates the law. He's the chief executive officer of the United States. He's supposed to be the chief enforcer of the law. And if he likes the law, he'll enforce it. If he doesn't, he won't. I mean, that's just been his modus operandi. But he says he's going to send these children back. Now, whether he'll do that or not, I don't know. I don't know what the reason for his rhetoric is, but it'd be a violation of the law to do that. But anyway, these children are coming here with all kinds of problems. Diseases. Now, when I say diseases, I'm talking things like mumps, scabies. Oh gosh, I probably couldn't name them all, but they're bringing all kinds. They're flea and lice infested, and they're being shipped around the country via public transportation. Buses and airplanes, and because they don't know what to do with them. They don't know where do you house this many children, and they're putting them on military bases and things like that. But anyway, the people in charge of these immigrant camps have been told that they can't tell the public what's going on in these camps, and the horrendous conditions in the camps and the disease and all that, because they don't want the people to know about it. It's kind of like when Obama said that Al-Qaeda was on the run, and then the Benghazi embassy was attacked by Al-Qaeda. He had to make up a story to hide the fact, to fit the narrative. Well, now his rhetoric is bringing those children here, and now he's got to hide the fact that those children are coming here and that they're a problem. And so he's forbidding the people that work there from talking about what's going on. Now, this is the most open, what was the phrase Obama used, the most open and honest administration in the history of the country?
Yeah.
Okay, and it hasn't. Okay, I just pulled up a list. It's scabies, measles, chicken pox, strep throat, and mental and emotional issues. Could you imagine a 4-year-old child separated from his parents having emotional issues? I just can't imagine that.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine what these children are going through.
Yeah, they've got to be really troubled.
Oh my.
Well, I mean, you would think that the free market would have a solution. The people would have a solution to this, and you know, there are a lot of people that would probably take a child in.
I think that's probably true. And what do you do with
not 1,000, but you know, you could take one.
No, oh, you mean? But there's probably thousands of people that are dying to have a child.
Right.
Absolutely. And I believe that may be the solution to this problem is adoption. Yeah. I mean, I know that severs their family ties, but their families just sent them off.
Yeah, right. Or even a foster situation in the meantime.
There's.
I've got I know a couple that adopted a child from a foreign country. And the reason they adopted the child from a foreign country was because the parents couldn't afford to feed the child. Mm-hmm. And I thought, why don't you just give them $1,000 a year to feed that child and let the child stay with his parents?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I just think kids should be with their parents, and so if there was some way to, you know, I thought America was kind of like the melting pot.
Yeah.
You know, what's wrong with immigration? Don't we want immigrants to come in? Don't we want to?
Well, we want them to come in, but we want them to come in a controlled manner. We don't want. We can't have just open borders. We want people to come in that we need in our country.
Yeah.
And for many years that's been migrant workers.
Yeah.
But they need to come in legally.
Yeah. Or change the law.
Well, you know, that's what I said. What's the solution to the immigration problem? The solution's simple. Enforce the current law.
Yeah.
The border has to be closed. We've got, and for one thing, who's coming in? We've got drug gangs coming in. And these are drug gangs that don't have the civility of the mafia.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was brutal.
oh, yeah. Well, one thing, for example, the mafia would never kill a prosecuting attorney or a judge. These drug gangs make it their point to kill prosecuting attorneys and judges. You know, that's a whole new level of incivility that we've never seen in this country. And that, and some of the, quote, children that are coming in are members of these drug gangs because some of them are in their 20s. You know, we have both ends. I mean, there's the very young children, and then there's at the other end. And, you know, you can be a member of a drug gang at well below probably 13. You know, there are members, very young members of drug gangs.
Right.
So we don't know who these people are.
Yeah. I mean, I might not, you're right, we don't know who they are, but and I could be wrong, but I would think they're probably just kids.
A lot of them are just kids. That's exactly right. And you know, I that's what dawned on me. The solution to, at least for the younger kids, may be adoption.
Yeah, just find a foster, you know, ring the bell, put out the call for parents, families to say, hey, will you take in the child?
Well, here's the beauty of adoption. When an adoption takes place, at least with this, you can make it this way. The state's responsibility financially ends.
Right.
And now I say that there are subsidized adoptions. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I'm not aware.
But there are subsidized adoptions. But you could make these.
Are there subsidized children? It's a tax deduction.
Well, actually, yes, there are. As a matter of fact, there are. But beyond tax deductions, yeah. The government pays many families for, you know, I've got a friend that was a Social Security judge's law clerk. And he said, Johnny says he wants to kill his sister. Give him a Social Security check. And that's how our system works. You know, we're kind of into a whole nother topic there.
Yeah.
But yes, there's subsidized kids. But you know, if you put them in foster care, foster parents get paid. If you adopt them out and you adopt them out without a subsidy, it ends the state's responsibility, and hopefully they wind up in a loving family that is going to teach them values and nurture them, and they'll become good, productive American citizens.
Right.
I got no problem with that.
Right. Me either.
So, you know, I think we are getting close to an end on today's broadcast, but I want to bring up one more issue, and it's about Eric Holder.
Okay.
Okay? There's been a book written. It's been written by John Fund and Hans von, and I cannot pronounce his name. Spakowski. Okay, and it talks about Eric Holder's activities, and this is, without a doubt, the most lawless Attorney General that the United States has ever had. He decides what laws he wants to enforce and what laws he doesn't want to enforce. One of the probably well-known examples were the new Black Panthers. They were standing at the doors of a polling place with billy clubs to
threatening voters.
Yeah, basically drive away anybody that appeared at the polling place without the proper credentials. And the proper credentials was dark skin. So if you were white, they basically, you know, bullied you into not voting. And Eric Holder says, oh no, we're not going to prosecute that. We're not going to pursue that. And you know, this is interesting. When I was in the Arkansas legislature, we had a hate crimes bill come before the legislature, and it came into the committee that I was in. And I made the comment, I said, well, you know, if a white person kills a black person, why is that more of a hateful crime than if a white person kills a white person? Or, you know, make it any race combination you want.
Right.
You know, murder's a hateful thing.
Right.
You know, and you know, why should, and I said this, why should a black person who kills a white person be punished more than a black person that kills a black person? And the sponsor of the bill says, oh no, that doesn't work that way. A hate crime is only when a white person kills a black person. And I said, well, you know, I'm not sure that will stand constitutional muster. I mean, you know, that law is not going to stand. But this is Eric Holder's mindset. You know, if a black person commits a crime against a white person, it's not a crime at all. But if a white person commits a crime against a black person, that's a hate crime. You know, crime is crime.
That's the way I see it.
And we need an attorney general that will enforce the laws as they are. And you know, in this book, he talks about many of the things he's done, but he's asked the question, do you think Eric Holder will be impeached? And his response is no, Eric Holder will never be impeached for two reasons. One, the Democrats like what he's doing. And that's very revealing. And anybody who may be listening and still thinks they're a Democrat, you know, do you really want to support a political party that doesn't believe the laws of the United States should be enforced or be enforced selectively? Well, what kind of chaos is that? But that's where we are with Eric Holder.
Hey, can I throw something out here in closing? That is, to me, a real good story. The Supreme Court has just rendered a decision on this issue with the Obamacare and the mandate to make corporations provide abortion on demand services.
This is the Hobby Lobby case.
The Hobby Lobby case, yeah. And the Supreme Court voted 5-4 to uphold the Constitution by giving the corporation similar rights to the individual and saying we can't make you do this. So when I found out, I think David Green is the CEO for Hobby Lobby, and
I think you're right.
I've had some. They have a foundation that helps churches build buildings